Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. In today's quick little video, I'm going to be going over every single relic that you should consider keeping in Honkai Star Rail and basically how to get better relics in this game. So first we're going to talk about the basics of enhancing relics, then we're going to go through some massive spreadsheets of every relic you should consider keeping. Then after that we're going to talk about domain ratings based on that spreadsheet. And finally we're going to show you guys some stamina usage charts which will help you decide what to actually prioritize when it comes to farming for relics, and also what to use those mold thingies that the self-modeling resin, that's what I was thinking of. So let's just really quickly run through the basics of enhancing relics. The first thing is, for those that might be super uninitiated, you are able to salvage 3 and 4 star relics, which once you hit a certain Trailblaze level, you will just pretty much want to get rid of all your 3 and 4 star relics. And eventually, you can also salvage a bunch of these relics in order to get this currency here, which you're able to use to exchange for other types of relics. Now basically you can exchange 10 5-star relics for 1 5-star relics over here in this thing right here, and you can even choose the piece as well as the set, which is very nice. And of course you can use the self-modeling resin to choose the stat that you want. Okay, I think most of you guys knew that stuff, so let's talk about what relics you should enhance at least up to level 3. Now this I would still consider to be fairly basic stuff, but don't worry, we are going to get to some more complex topics in a bit. And first off, basically, for most DPS sets, you absolutely want to enhance any piece that has a crit value without a second crit value, especially in the helms and the gloves, because if you have 3 slots, you can go up to 4 slots, and then you get +1 to each substat every 3 levels after that. So we can see in this case that we have a 3 slot relic, or 3 substat relic. We enhance it, we did not get crit rate, so this relic is likely just going to be EXP fodder for later. We're going to do this a couple more times as well to see if we can get double crit, and no, we did not, we got a defense. So yeah, you want to go through and double check that. Now when it comes to bodies, for most DPS sets, you will want to focus on the crit stats, and in this case we do have this crit damage one, which we do want to bring up to 5. We want to go for crit rate, and look at that, we got crit rate on this piece, so that's actually pretty cool. I'm going to enhance this one all the way up to 15, because regardless of honestly how it rolls, unless everything goes into attack, it's likely that I'm going to find some use for it. So let's go ahead, and we got 1 attack, 1 speed, and 2 crit rate rolls, and the 4 additional rolls from 3 to 15. This is a pretty solid relic piece, and it is nice to have. Now unfortunately for Clara, she really likes having crit rate, not crit damage, but if in the future we do have a character that will want crit damage for this physical set, then this is going to be nice. Now for boots, typically you want to focus on the main stat that the set actually focuses on. Like for example, in this case we have attack, so attack boots are also going to be useful for this set. And finally, speed, like for pretty much every other character, or every character in the game, most characters in the game, you want speed. Clara is the exception in the sense that she does not necessarily need speed. And just to show you guys a cool quick little trick, you can select the main stat here to filter by the main stat, and you can even add the substats as needed. And we can see here that I don't have any speed boots with crit rate, and you can even sort this by a specific stat if you want. Like for example, let's say we want to sort this by attack percent. Now we are going descending, and we can see that these boots are now sorted by attack percent for those that do have it. So yeah, good to know some of the filtering relic options that will help you a lot when it comes to actually going through relics. Now, the same mentality applies to obviously, the spheres and the ropes, but let's say you are using a character like Clara and you are trying to figure out, should I use the inert Salsado or should I use the space sealing station for her? Now, generally speaking, of course, we know that the inert Salsado is a bit better, but what we can do is we can actually see how much, how good we have each of the pieces here. And we can further cut down kind of the filtering here and check out now all the physical damage spheres. Perhaps we're going to use one set over the other based on which one we have that's better. And we can see here that it's a clear winner for me. We have the physical damage sphere between the two sets, and it's very likely I'm going to use the inert Salsado. Now, that was for DPS characters. Let's next just quickly talk about some principles for support characters. Support characters have so much variety that it's really difficult to kind of cover all the bases here. But some of the stats that you really want to keep in mind for are speed and effect resistance. Now, why speed is obvious because you want your supports to go fast, and you can also have multiple different speed values to help speed tune your team. But why effect resistance? Because this will enable those supports to utilize the broken keel. Because once you have a certain amount of effect resistance, 30% or higher, or perhaps up to 20% in substats, then you will get 10% crit damage for the rest of your team. So that's why for a lot of support sets, you want to keep in mind, look out for speed as well as effect resistance. And of course, certain supports prefer certain stats, like Luocha prefers attack percent, Bronya prefers crit damage, so on and so forth. So for that, we're not going to go over every single character, every single detail right now, but we actually will in the next section. Speaking of the next section, we have this behemoth of a spreadsheet. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so that way you guys can see a bit more of the full chart. This chart, I will have a link to it down in the description below. Just click File, Make a Copy, and this will copy it over to your Google Drive, and then you can mess with it as much as you want and to customize it as needed. So the way I've divided this is that I have basically my recommended 4-piece sets for each of these characters, and I have enough columns in order to add 3 sets of 4-piece set bonuses for each character. Then I have 2 columns dedicated to, let's say you want to use 2-piece set bonuses for said character like Dan Hung, then you can have the Musketeers and Messengers, which is a decent combination for him. And finally, we have the 2-piece set bonuses, which include the Sphere and the Rope. And here we can see that I've listed just my personal recommendations for each character's, sphere and rope. And then we have the main stat recommendations as well as the substats. Now, I'm sure there are some mistakes because I hand inputted all of this, but the whole point of this is that you guys can edit it and you guys can customize it as you see fit. For example, let's say you believe that Jingliu should use a genius set. Well, you can easily add the genius set here into the 4-piece set bonus as the second set here, and I'll leave it here for the sake of example. You can add to your personal preferences. Let's say you think your Jingliu should use a 2-piece messenger. That's totally fine. 2-piece musketeers. I personally recommend it a little bit less, but hey, you can also add it as needed, as you feel is appropriate. So now that we have this massive chart, it definitely looks a bit overwhelming, but we can see here that this is a reasonable starting point for figuring out what stats to focus on, what stats to target, and what stats to roll for substats. Now, the next question is, okay, what domains should I farm for? And this is a pretty cool filter that I have. So let's say we're going to be farming as an example, the champion of Streetwise Boxing, as well as the thief of whatever, I don't really remember the full name of it, but we have the champion where we can select in this spot, as well as the thief. And this will show you every character that you are going to be trying to potentially farm for, whether it's a 2-piece set like here for Silver Wolf, or whether it is the 4-piece set bonus like for Guinai Finn as an example. And we even have the subsets to keep an eye out for. Let's say theoretically you're trying to farm for Luca as well as Guinai Finn. Well, now you can keep an eye out for effect hit rate bodies, attack percent bodies, speed boots. Well, you're not farming the sphere or rope here, but those are there as well for you to know, as well as the substats. You want to focus on speed, effect hit rate, and attack percent, and perhaps break effect. And if you want to edit this, go back to Guinai Finn, for example, and we can even add break effect as a recommended for Substat for her. So you can see that this document is going to be a work in progress, as well as very easy for you guys to customize for your farming needs and for your farming reference. Okay, so the next topic I want to talk about is domain value. I think many of you guys already have a pretty good idea as to like what domains are more valuable than others, but I feel like some actual numeric values might actually be useful. And sorry about that notification on my phone. So we have here, these are the Cavern of Corrosions. These are the ones where you farm the 4-piece set bonuses like the Passerby, Wandering Cloud, as well as the 4-piece Musketeers. And what is this occurrences? This occurrences, as we can see, is the number of characters that this appears under. And we can see here that some of the domains have much more value than the others, like the Passerby plus Musketeers. You're going to have all the healers, as well as a bunch of attack scaling characters preferring the Musketeers 2-piece set bonus. And same with the Longevous plus Messenger. The Messenger is obviously an insane relic set for so many different supports. It's a great option for a lot of them. And we can see that as we get down the list, which it's not sorted properly. Let me fix that really quick for you guys. There we go. We can see here that now we're starting to see that you're getting to less characters that you're farming for. So we can see that the domain value, in my opinion, does go down. But of course, if you are farming for example, Jingliu, well, you're going to probably want to farm the Band of Sizzling Thunder, regardless of whether or not you end up wanting the Knight of whatever it's called relic set. So I do apologize for not using the full name of all the relic sets. So because it was just like, you know, the columns become way too wide because of the names of these relic sets are super long and hyperbolic. Honestly, the people that named this game are very creative. So Simulated Universe, it's no surprise to see that the Space Sealing Station and Fleet of the Ageless come out on top. The Inert Salsoto, which is actually missing here. There we go. I'm sure many of you guys were about to comment, hey, the Inert Salsoto is in the wrong place. But yeah, no, I managed to fix it here. It's in Simulated Universe 6. And for example, let's say you want to get a bunch of Inert Salsoto pieces, but we can see that the Bellabog is really barely recommended for any characters, just a few shielders. The Inert Salsoto is a great option to, for example, use a lot of these relic pieces in order to manually craft right here. So you could, for example, get a bunch of the planar spheres if you're going for a fire sphere for your topaz as an example. The next topic that I need to cover is the relic drop rates, as well as which ones have the highest value based on stamina, as well as, you know, their drop rates. So this data is from a CN data gathering group that, you know, has a bunch of information on the drop rates for these relics. And as we can see, there's a bit of a small formatting issue, which I'm going to fix really quick. We can see here that this document is that this video has me fixing a lot of stuff in it, but hey, that's kind of what these documents are about. So it's clear which ones cost the most average stamina to get. So for example, let's say you are trying to farm a crit rate body for the champion of Streetwise Boxing. The average amount of stamina that it would take you while farming that domain to get that crit rate body is 1,522 based on the data from, you know, these data gatherers over on the CN side. These pieces tend to be more valuable. That crit rate, crit damage, healing percent, and effect hit rate are the pieces that are going to cost you the most stamina to farm. And speed boots, they also cost a good amount of stamina, but noticeably less than these main stats for the body. And over here at the rope side, we can see that the energy recharge rope in particular is going to be the rarest rope that you can farm. And the average stamina for all of these are much lower. And this is because you only have 4 possible drops from the simulated universe, being the ball and the sphere for each of the 2 sets. Whereas here, you have 4 different pieces for 2 sets, so therefore you have 8 different pieces that you're farming for. So what does this mean? Well, this is just some general broad advice, but let's say you really want a an effect hit rate body for one of your nihility characters. For Sampo as an example, and let's say you want to run Sampo with the thief of whatever it's called. If you don't want to go farm a bunch of the thief as well as champion of streetwise boxing, but you have reasonable main stats for the rest, like let's say you have speed boots and you have, you know, heads and hands, obviously those are pretty much free, then you can consider using. And you can use a self-modeling resin on effect hit rate, so that way you don't have to farm this domain and you are using it on one of the higher stamina value pieces that is, you know, you would have to farm for otherwise. And also it's worth noting that when using the self-modeling resin, it's probably best for you to use it on a character that doesn't really care that much about its substats, because you are very, very likely going to get, you know, just doo-doo substats. And if you're hoping for, let's say, double crit effect hit rate piece, you're very, very unlikely to get it by using the self-modeling resin. And finally, energy recharge rope when it comes to spheres, or when it comes to the 2-piece set bonus, is the way to go because that is the lowest drop rate. Also, it's worth keeping in mind that if you do want to use Von Wax, farming the Talia and Von Wax is a terrible use of your stamina, so, you know, grabbing an energy recharge rope for the Von Whack is very valuable. So you also want to keep in mind which one of these have poor value when it comes to your overall account, when it comes to utilizing your self-modeling resin as well as your relic craftings. Now also keep in mind, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the Passerby Wandering Cloud as well as the 4-piece Musketeers drops from the weekly bosses, which you should obviously be running every single week. So you will tend to have more of these pieces and you don't necessarily have to go out of your way spending as much stamina on them in comparison to farming other sets, like for example, perhaps the Genius or a DPS set for your Clara with the Champion 4-piece. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, make a copy, customize the sheets in the character page as needed, and use the filtered sheet to see what you're farming for and what stats I personally recommend keeping as well as farming for. Feel free to edit it as you need because that's the whole point of making a copy and creating a copy of this spreadsheet. Hopefully you guys found some value in this video. Obviously, when it comes to relic farming in Honkai Star Rail, it will always come down to RNG and just patience and spending a ton of time, days, and that is the true end game of Honkai Star Rail. It is farming relics. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.